Welcome to our Commerce Reimagined series, highlighting change makers, visionaries, and the people who are transforming the way we are defining commerce today, especially in this very changing world that we're in. I am Beth Kaminkow. I am the Global CEO of Geometry, and today I am very excited to welcome our guest, Geralyn Breig. She is the founder and CEO of AnyTownUSA.com, which is the first e-commerce marketplace for American-made goods. Well done on that. I look forward to learning more as we get into the conversation. She launched that site in 2018, and prior to that, she was in a number of different Fortune 500 leadership roles and remains in a board capacity now, serving for 1-800-Flowers, Hanes Brands, and Welch's Foods. So definitely in good company today, and I'm sure there's a lot we can learn as well as to support. So I look forward to getting into this conversation with you, Geralyn.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. It should be fun.
So let's get right into the discussion when we think about kind of the environment that we're in right now, and the need, and this is obviously a global conversation, but with a focus obviously on American-made goods in the marketplace that you both have conceived of and support. This is a really difficult, challenging time when we think about small and medium businesses, and I'm sure a lot of the people who are getting value and benefit from your site, certainly on the selling side of that. So it would be great to understand a little bit more about what you're learning through this experience and the ways that they are rising to the challenge, and the things that we can all do to sort of further support the revitalization and sort of the economic upturn that we hope to see from this.
Sure. Thanks again for having me and for putting a spotlight on these American makers by talking to me today. They, they're in everybody's neighborhood and all across the country making things. And, about less than 5% of what we buy these days is made in the U.S. So they're hard to find, and it's great when people seek them out and find them. Small businesses, like everybody else, I would say has three major concerns that get magnified in a situation like this. One is, cash and cash flow, always, businesses large and small. Small businesses, though, are challenged with, usually small staff, so they can only handle so many things at a time. If you're a maker of clothes and you've got like 4 people on staff, maybe you were time challenged before and didn't open e-commerce. And the second thing is, because they're small staffed, often they I would say ride one strategy to its grave. So a lot of these makers, were selling wholesale, and they would go to these big shows at places like Javits Center and take wholesale orders and get into bricks and mortar stores, big and small. Some of them sold at local craft shows in places like, the Baltimore Convention Center or places like that. And those are all closed. They've been closed since March and canceled all the way through August, at least at this point as we're recording. And many of them either don't have their own e-commerce or don't know how to drive traffic to it. So devastating, right? Completely devastating in this moment. What we do and have done for almost 2 years now is we make it easy for makers in the U.S. to, get seen, because our site is all American makers. And we also, basically operate e-commerce for them. They get on our platform. We handle everything. We drive the traffic. We run the site. And we also collect and remit all the state sales tax, which got very complicated after 2018 when Wayfair lost the decision in the Supreme Court, and states then were able to collect taxes on e-commerce. So we are a turnkey solution for little guys. And so in this moment in particular, if you were struggling with your own e-commerce or you didn't get into it, we're a good alternative.
So do you find that many of your companies that you're working with have multiple strategies, though, still, and are now pursuing multiple channels and strategies to help rebound?
Yeah, it depends, right? So certainly one of the first things we saw was people who cut and sewed, anything from duffel bags to children's clothing, pivoted very quickly to make what I'm going to call personal masks, right? These are not N95 masks or something like that. These are the personal masks that they tell all of us now that we have to wear if we fly JetBlue or walk into Costco.
I recently ordered a number on your site.
Yes, well, thank you. And look, people need them. And it's kind of funny to watch in the sense that in the first few days, people grabbed any mask they could, and some of the first ones were just very boring. And now people are buying them in all sorts of colors and patterns and getting fashiony. And we're selling kids masks, you know, above a certain age, they can wear them, and men's masks, and everything from the US flag to camouflage to really pretty patterns. So the guys who could pivoted to that. Same thing with people who were making, soap and candles and things like that. If they could get their hands on ingredients, they pivoted and made hand sanitizer, which we all needed. They could not pivot and make toilet paper or, Clorox wipes, but they are trying to do that as a way to keep their people employed and to bring some money in, because like I said, the core of their sales have been devastated. Other folks, honestly, very challenged. And they are challenged to keep their people employed and to keep their doors open. And, I've talked to people big and small who are literally having to look for other jobs right now during this time period, because it's all about cash, right? At the end of the day, you have to be able to buy what you need.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people talk about kind of a hibernating strategy, that they may just sort of need to be quiet and hibernate for a little while, but then wake back up again and be ready to hit the moment when there's need again. Just out of curiosity, just a very quick question on if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, wow, with a turnkey strategy like this, I could open up shop. I have an idea, or I have a new need that I see that I can meet. What would the time frame be? How quickly could somebody be up and running?
Yeah, you can be up in less than 24 hours, right? We do, unlike some of the big sites that don't really validate, who's selling on those sites. And look, they're wonderful, but they get frauds and fakes on. We do validate. So all somebody has to do is go to the bottom of our webpage. There's a little line that says apply to be a seller. Click on that. It takes a minute, and we send you a registration link. We had someone last Friday who makes, I'm sure you've seen those sort of plastic shield masks.
Yes.
That, people use in healthcare. They're not preventative. They're just sort of like a splash guard. But the person was a hair dresser who bought the first set. And, but the supplier contacted us on Friday afternoon and registered Saturday morning and had their first sale by noon. So it can work pretty fast, but we do validate that they are who they say they are, that they are making in America, and their identity. And so we haven't had instances of fraud and fakes and things like that on our site, because we take that extra care.
So let's go a little bit into kind of the e-commerce behavior and digital innovation in general. We have seen an adoption of a broader group of population that are more comfortable now with delivery, with ordering online, with new apps that they probably haven't used before, and hopefully discovering sites like yours. When you project out and you work with a lot of your sellers, and you think about 6 months now, a year from now, do you see the either consumer behavior driving to a different change that's going to create opportunity? Do you see new technologies kind of emerging that are going to play a role in how you think about sort of next generation of your marketplace? What are some of the trends that you are projecting forward from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the macro trend has been for years the percent of shopping that's done online, right? Which is probably for most categories north of 30% now, and maybe coming out of this disruption higher. So a constant migration to online, which, started with using desktop and laptop, and now almost all e-commerce is done on mobile. So not all, but north of 50%. So that migration trend will continue. If you're at a big company, and as you noted at the top of the call, I do have my foot still in some rather large companies. The next wave for the sophisticated companies that have been doing e-commerce and for a while, most people really do agree it's voice. Someday, people will go, really? You clicked on a phone to buy something? Just like our kids look at us now and say, really? Once upon a time, you used a map? But one day we won't be tethered to a device, and it will all be voice. And you know, we've seen the beginnings of that with things like Alexa and things like that. But voice shopping is where we're headed. Everyone knows right now the voice technology is not perfect. I know every time I ask my car to do something, it orders pizza. But eventually, the voice technology is where we will be. That's the big wave, and I think the macro where things are headed. For the little guys, small and medium-sized businesses, honestly, I think it's about just getting with it, because you know, it isn't easy to create or host a website. Anybody can put up, you know, a sort of WordPress site and showcase their business, but managing all the complexity that comes with running e-commerce, it's a lot. And a lot of smaller businesses, you know, they're in it because they're fashion people or they're artists or whatever it is. They're you know, a maker, not a web designer or web operator. And so what they have to, I think, see is the trend, know where it's headed, and then seek out, you know, things like Anytown USA or other providers that can lift the burden off them. Because the other thing that happens is, this is not a set and forget it thing, technology. It is changing every 3 months. What you know, as soon as you think you've got a handle on it, it shifts again. So unless you can devote staff to it, you know, you need to find someone who can keep up with it for you and stay on top of it, because the rate of technological change is not slowing down, it's accelerating.
I would imagine some of that is support that you would offer them as well, you know, given that you can look at it across many of the different companies and are creating a vertically integrated marketplace with a lot of that value that you can provide them, which is incredible. So now I want to get into that. You mentioned, you know, from your viewpoint, you have both the kind of, even in your career, that 60,000 foot view of running commerce teams and digital teams and really tackling some of these more challenging retail questions. And then now you're in the weeds, you know, on the ground floor of being there selling and doing what it takes to enable these companies. So you really do see the full spectrum. And I imagine you're sitting in conversations right now at both levels, advising and guiding and thinking about, what do you do when you're facing such a cyclical downturn that this is creating for us? So I would love to be able to tap into, even if it's leadership advice that you would have, you know, what are some of those things that you would offer in terms of guidance that really does feel relevant, whether you're kind of the mom and pop or you're the big Fortune 500?
Yeah, I mean, look, the majority of companies, I don't care whether they're large or small, are not technology companies or not companies that were born on social media, you know, like Kylie Jenner and her influencer business. So the vast majority of these companies are still run by people 50 plus. I don't think it's any secret to say they're all men for the most part. You know, when they're still counting women CEOs, it means there's not enough of them. And so a lot of them don't use social media themselves, are afraid of it. You know, remember the days when you controlled the message, and that ship sailed like 10 years ago, where you had to open up your platform to people commenting and reviews driving things and stuff like that. And so the number one thing that I see is people who succeed when they actually bring in voices from millennials and even Gen Z as they, you know, start graduating. And it's just so different. When I started working, you know, everybody above me had to teach me what I needed to know. It was one way, and it was top down. And we sort of had nothing of value to add except for energy and an ability to sleep less. Now it's like 50-50. If you don't let the voices in of people who are digital natives to influence your business and how you go to market and all of that, you are going to lose. It's that simple. And so, you know, the macro advice is, you know, diversity is not like a buzzword or something you write on a t-shirt. Really, really, really bringing these quote unquote young folks in and helping drive your social strategies, your social commerce strategies, your social media strategies, everything about that. It's just going to separate the winners and losers. It really is.
Well, I will emphasize that because, yeah, diversity in all of its forms, I think also reflecting more of a cultural diversity that feels like more in alignment with the local markets that we all live in and the local communities that we're a part of is so important to be much more attuned to messaging and tonality of messaging, and then the tactics and the mechanics that go behind that. Completely agree, and thank you for pushing that. I think that with all the different stages and arenas that you get to influence, there's no question. A lot of young people come to us and say, we were so ready if they were graduating or they were doing internships to jump into the industry, and now they just feel this big speed bump in front of them. And I think very quickly we're all going to have to find ways to create those opportunities and those jobs, and they're now more hungry and ready to do it for sometimes next to nothing, although I do think we need to value monetarily as well the contribution, but I could not agree more that that's so important. And so with that wisdom, another area of guidance that I'd love to get from you, which is around even just consumers, where everybody right now I think wants to do something that is going to help influence and impact a stronger recovery. So again, given kind of your place in the world and what you're doing, what are some things that you think, whether it's consumers, retailers, and brands and entrepreneurs should be thinking about and doing right now to stimulate our economies?
Yeah, I mean, clearly this is where I'm coming from, and this is part of the genesis of my whole business. So I confess to being a bit biased, but if people want to help with a faster recovery in the United States, you have to keep the money at home. And, for every one of these little guys and we're talking small and medium businesses that I work with, and some of them are real small, but some of them are like 25 million, 30 million in sales a year. Every one of them employs people in the community, not just for their firm, cutting and sewing or whatever they're doing, but, they have accountants, they have lawyers, they have somebody taking pictures, they have, all sorts of people that they pay. And when you buy something from one of them, you get those people paid, and then they spend money back in the community. And it's what one of my guests on my podcast, The American Made Marketplace, called the circle economy. So, I mean, we've all heard the statistic from Small Business Saturday where they say every dollar you spend locally keeps 67 cents. Okay, great. But a lot of people think that begins and ends with patronizing, local stores. And if you go in the local stores in my town, 100% of the stuff is made in China. I don't care how cute it is or if it has my local zip code on it. You flip it over and you are sending your money back to China. And look, I'm a global person. I've worked globally for 15 years. I do believe in global commerce. I just don't happen to believe that all things should be made in one country. That's not global. And I think if you want to help this recovery, you should keep the money in the United States, in your community as much as you can. Now, a lot of things aren't made here anymore. So the one thing we keep telling people is, look, we know you are probably going to eventually buy an import, okay? But why not shop American made first? Because you're helping, some mother in Wisconsin, or we have a woman who makes some incredible jewelry in the Bronx, or, we have a wonderful family out in Northern Cal, people in Texas. We have people in 45 states making things who are all employing people in their communities. So take a look, whether it's my site or somewhere else, and see, can you buy something made in the US first before you, just go over and buy an import? I really do think, it's that simple. And it's not a charity thing either. Most Americans believe things that are made in the US are made with better quality and more rigor and, not in a sweatshop. And frankly, most of these things are not carried in Macy's or TJ Maxx or whatever, so they're unique. And if you care about looking a little different, dressing a little different, giving a little bit different gift, it actually will help you. We have these, I'll tell you one really quirky thing on our website right now, is these quarantine greeting cards, which are hysterically funny. Yeah. And, try finding that in CVS. You're not going to see it. But so it doesn't matter whether you're looking for something that's, $4, or the other day we sold a wagon with beach wheels that is all made out of aluminum. So it's for fishermen who want to haul stuff around, or mommies who want to haul stuff to the beach. $629. But again, where are you going to find something like that? So people are really creative, and supporting them just supports their communities.
Yeah, and I also just supporting makers. You know, there's something different about mass manufacturing versus makers. And everybody needs face masks right now, so we can just start on your site looking for that and then discover what else is there. And to your point about your podcast, I want to direct people to learn more too by following you in your podcast series as well, which is also full of great information. So Geralyn, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a wonderful conversation. I feel inspired to go act and to really be clearer about where I'm making my future purchases. I appreciate your time, and I know that you, people can discover more about you through your website, Anytown USA, but also through following you on LinkedIn and through your podcast series and other social channels. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and to be continued.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great talking to you.